All right, in this video, I wanted to take you guys down memory lane in regards to my relationship with bodybuilding, health, physical culture, and all of the black hat behind the curtain practices of the bodybuilding and health and fitness world, particularly, especially with this channel. A lot of it's about anti-aging, TRT, steroids, and those types of things. And what I'm hoping that you guys get out of this video is, by understanding my perspective, you can get some nuggets of wisdom that will help you optimize your decision making to be able to continue your journey in the safest and most productive way possible. So basically using my experience as a way to edify your results and personal growth and health. That's the bottom line. So what you're looking at here is essentially kind of where it started. I was always into physical culture. I started officially training when I was 12, but I was always even training before then, doing push-ups and body weight calisthenics at home. And I can remember even when I was 8, 9, 10, I would go to my coach's house after our football games just so I could lift weights, because I knew he had a gym in his garage. And my coach's son and I were the same age, so we would hang out after the games. But obviously I wanted to hang out with my buddy, but more my ulterior motive was to use his weights because he had a weight set, and I thought that was pretty cool. So that was what I wanted to do. So by the time this picture was taken, I was 15, and I had already been training for about 3 years. So this was my first bodybuilding competition, and I was fortunate enough to go to a high school. Talk about divine order, where there was we had bodybuilding competition as one of the, I guess, official sports. So this bodybuilding competition typically happens around springtime. Right before spring break is typically when they had it. So Mr. and Miss NMB competition, this is when bodybuilding was around. And before I won this show, that's the first place trophy, by the way. Before I won it, the only people who won it prior to me winning it were seniors. I was the first underclassman to win this competition, essentially. And I'm a sophomore at this point. I went to a high school which had sophomores, juniors, and seniors, so it went from 10th to 12th grade. So I was the first underclassman to win this show. So essentially, I smoked dozens of what was amounted to be grown men at the time. I mean, I'm 15 and they're 18. Some of them probably 19. So this is just from training and having a structure and learning the right things from the beginning. And this is where it went from there. And this is the result of it. My mentor, my uncle, my late uncle, William Bernard Thomas, he was instrumental in helping me prepare. Initially, he was a bodybuilder. He was in the Marine Corps, and he was stationed over in California, so he had access to the whole bodybuilding mecca at the time. I mean, this was back in the 70s. He was in Vietnam, so after he left Vietnam, he was stationed over in California, so he had a chance to interact with that culture and John Brown and all of those guys. So he was influenced by them, and therefore I was influenced by them as well. So I come from that type of lineage. So he choreographed my posing routine, showed me how to train, and gave me the philosophy on how to best build my body to be the best bodybuilder. He's like, I'm just trying to, it's bringing me back here. He's like, you got to have your wheels, meaning your legs. You got to have your wheels. You got to have your calves. You got to have your small waist. You gotta have the big back, and you gotta have your abs. You gotta have your symmetry. If you got your V taper, a little guy will typically beat a bigger guy, and that's essentially what happened because, ironically, um, my main training partner for this competition was my good friend, um, at Jonas at the time, and he was a senior, and he won. He came second the year before, and I think he came second the year before that as well. So 3 years in a row, essentially he ended up runner up. But the thing about Jonas is that Jonas was huge at the time. I mean a proper bodybuilder, big, muscular. He was probably 180, 185, like proper linebacker. I think he played, big guy, and I'm all of about 142 pounds on this picture. But again, in bodybuilding, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And well, typically, this is the era that I came from. That things have changed now with the mass culture and the mass era, but the the symmetry and the conditioning um, ran supreme. He wasn't as conditioned, and he wasn't as polished with his presentation and posing. So here we are. We're trying to get back to that when it comes in terms of like classic physique, but that's been my philosophy, and that's the way I was taught right from the beginning. And to the same degree, this is what the judges are looking for in terms of at the highest level. They're looking for conditioning. They're looking for, I mean, obviously, when you get to the pro level, you have to have the whole package. I mean, you got to have maximum size, maximum conditioning, and all of that. Um, so that is the philosophy there. So moving along, if you want a practical guide to help you apply what you're learning, get my book, Belly Shred Method. It's a system that I created specifically for men to help you improve your metabolic health, give you a practical routine, workouts, nutrition plan, and stress management system to keep you on point. It's sustainable. If you're a man 35 plus looking to get lean, find a sustainable way to stay in shape without hours in the gym, this is the program for you. So to get a copy of that book, there should be a link somewhere in the description. Now back to your program. My second competition, which is the same competition a year later, and I think that first competition I was like 143. I think on this one I was anywhere between 147 and 148 again. Conditioning and presentation. I won it this year as well. So I was the first person to win that competition twice. This is completely natural, by the way. This is just straight training. I was 16 here at the time. This is 91. Ironically, typically during spring break, which is when this happened the day before, I would go to visit my relatives in Atlanta, which is where Lee Haney is from. And ironically, after I won this show, we went up to Atlanta, and I was able to train with my uncle, my late uncle. He and I went to one of Lee Haney's gyms, one of those, not the main Animal Kingdom, but he had a second gym that was a little bit smaller. So we ended up training there, and I ended up meeting him. This is 1991. This was Lee Haney's last year before he retired. So you can imagine the shape that he was in when this is April. So he was getting ready to start his main prep for the Olympia. It was just amazing. So I came in, he happened to be there, and I shook his hand. I mean, his hand was like huge. It was like shaking three hands, with my 16-year-old hand, but very, very gracious. And I was able to take advantage of that moment. So this is my second competition. And then, ironically, I'm going to come back out of here. I'm going to just roll with this. So this is my third, probably not my fourth competition. This is not my high school bodybuilding competition. This is teenage Florida. On this show, this was actually my first, after my first exposure to anabolics, basically. I give you my full transparent story here. I ran my first cycle of anabolics when I was I think it was November of 91. So later that 91 year, so between 91 and 92, I went from 160 to about 180. But I ended up not even, actually more than that. I think I was like 150 to 180. But here I'm on stage at about I want to say 160 there. So I got second in this show. I think my conditioning was a little bit off compared to the gentleman who beat me, who was a good friend of mine. So conditioning, it all comes back to conditioning. The thing that they don't tell you, especially at the high level, is that once you start introducing anabolics and you have good genetics, you have to really understand how to tweak your diet and obviously the supplementation to maximize conditioning, to be able to maintain the look. So still a good package, but wasn't enough to get it done. But I got off stage, went across the street, got ready for my prom, which is exactly the same night. So I went off stage, showered, put on my tux, across the street, met my date for the prom. So everything was all in one general area, which was, again, I think looking back in divine order. And then the next day after the prom, I went right to work, which is I was managing a gym. So I was just all about it. I had to open for on Saturday for the gym that I was working at the time. So that's my competition there. And then here, this is 1993. This is, I guess, about a year later, maybe a little over a year later. This was my 1, 2, 3. This was after I had competed at the Teenage Nationals, and at that show, I think I came fifth, maybe sixth, just out of the top 5. Just to put it in perspective, Branch Warren was in my class, if you know who that is, bodybuilding Hall of Famer, and Jay Cutler competed at a heavyweight. So this is the 1993 Teenage Collegiate National. This isn't the show. This is obviously the NPC Southern States. This was about 8 weeks after that show. A little bit better conditioning, and this show actually, Joe McNeil prepped me for this particular show. I actually had 2 trainers. I had never had another trainer other than my uncle before this. My other trainer, the late Edmundo Medolo, did my training, and Joe McNeil did my diet. That was pretty interesting. Joe McNeil, if you don't know who he is, he worked with Flex Wheeler and Dexter Jackson, amongst just to name a few. So I won this show. This was the overall. I won my class. This is the overall lineup. That big 17-year-old teenager ended up winning the overall. I was 19 here at the time, but again, very huge amount of growth in that period from training with my trainer, and with having Joe McNeil consult me on the nutrition and supplementation aspect of it. It was it was pretty wild. I weighed in at 191 on that stage. That's probably the biggest I've ever been on stage. So yeah, that's 191 at light heavyweight, and that was that. So same show here. This is just a side chest shot. This just going back, this is one of my very first prepping clients. She was all natural here. This is back in 1994. At the time, she was 44 at the time, and she dialed it in well. She was disciplined, and yep, that's one of my prep clients. This is her on stage. This is when there was no figure fitness. It was just straight bodybuilding at the time. Even today, that look is amazing. She could probably place well even this many years later. So back shot. Another client of mine, again, bodybuilding. She ended up getting her IFBB Pro card. Moving forward, this was like 96. So been doing prepping work for athletes for decades now in that area. This was I was 23, so this had to be like 96. Yeah, like 1996. Believe it or not, this picture completely natural. So you can see the residual effects of, well, obviously being young and training, but there was no anabolics being used when taking this picture. Just straight supplementation, and I think I did like a 8 week kind of a cutting phase of training. So yeah, just again age, timing, and genetics, but that's completely no anabolics on these pictures. Um, but again, the base of training and knowledge was there. Again, at no point did I ever try to substitute using anabolics with not having the right training in place, and I think that's what's been guiding me the whole time. Just some photos from one of my great photographer friends, the great Michael Falana. He shot in a lot of people here. Just going through there off season. This is a photo shoot for a popular bodybuilding clothing line called Gorilla Wear. There, another there. That guy at the bottom right there, that's Frank Seppi, who's a popular bodybuilder, bodybuilding model at the time. So it was a cool being able to do a shoot with him. Now, some other shoots and stuff. That's about the same year, 1997-ish. Again, completely natural there. Completely natural there. Now, this is interesting. This is me. So I competed from like 1990 to 1995. 1995 was my last competition before taking a long break. That last show was 1995, and that was the Open Men's Florida. And I was 21, competing in the Open Men's class for the first time. And the NPC Florida is a huge and prestigious competition. If you did well at that show on any capacity, you were probably going to do well at the national level. And if you did well at the Florida, it's a high probability that you could potentially turn pro, which most people did coming out of that show. But to make a long story short, I'm getting at, this show was huge. There was like 50 guys in my class, and I ended up popping the top 5, even having missed my peak. And this was right during the explosion of the mass era. So as I was, concluding this competition in 1995, my soul just spoke to me and said, I think it's time for a break, because I knew I didn't want to take it there in terms of what I needed to do to compete as a competitive bodybuilder during that era. So I basically took a 20-year layoff from 1995, did not compete. I veered off into my other ventures and continuing my education and getting my degree in exercise physiology, and then continuing my what would be the equivalent of graduate studies in holistic health and basically a naturopathic and holistic training. And this is so I took a 20-year layoff, and then all of a sudden the bug hit me again in 2014, and at the age of 40, I entered my first men's physique competition, because at that time, bodybuilding had evolved. These new classes saved the sport, because at one point it was dying out, and Jim Manion, in his genius innovation, decided to open up these new classes, which turned the sport into something that it is today, and it's done it. So bottom line, this prep was a 6-week prep. And I'm coming from a bodybuilding background, so these board shorts and this whole no emphasis on the quads was a bit of a shock to me. But this was only a 6-week prep, and I ended up coming second. And then this was Masters Physique, and it was a 6-week prep. Funny, those shorts were falling off of me. I mean, you buy them when you're not fully dialed in. So by the time I got dialed in, literally, I had to change shorts for the evening show, because those things it was quite funny. But anyway, we figured it out. Obviously, the shorts have evolved a lot since then, and you'll see even just in the upcoming pictures. But anyway, so now that I knew the standard of what I needed to do to be able to compete, instead of doing a 6 week prep for this one, I took a full 9 months to come back and do the same show a year, essentially a year later, and that's essentially the look. I mean, this is, I'm running on full cylinders here, proper training, full array of supplementation. You know what I mean? So, and ended up winning the overall Masters, and arguably, I should have won the Open men's class because I came second to the guy who ended up winning the overall. And I think the reason why I did not win the overall was because I had a posing issue. I wasn't hitting my shots properly from the back. But hindsight. But the gift of it is I did win the overall Masters, and I actually crossed over and did bodybuilding at this same show because because of my bodybuilding background. I have a symmetrical physique. I was the only person that actually in that whole show to cross over and get hardware from both divisions. And this was I think it was probably like 6 or 9 months before they officially introduced the men's physique category. So otherwise I would have probably done men's physique, but there was no men's physique in 2015 at this time, which is when this competition occurred and when this photo was taken. So at 41, I did that show. That was the NPC Southern States, and then so that was Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So literally 5 days later, I was in Pittsburgh competing in the Masters, Teen and Collegiate Masters Nationals. And that is where I, at the age of 41, after taking a 20-year layoff, received my IFBB Pro card. These are the top 5 winners, top 5 guys. Obviously, I think there were like 26 guys in my class. So yeah, that was the story. I got my pro card after taking a 20-year layoff after doing a proper training for a year. And the only way I was able to do that was a few reasons. One, having that solid foundation that my uncle had given me, and having that solid bodybuilding foundation and understanding these basic principles. And then number 2 is living the physical excellence and the maximum vitality lifestyle for all those years. Because had I not maintained my base level of lifestyle and health and vitality, I wouldn't have been able to progress that fast. So essentially, I was always ready, right? As Will Smith says, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. So that's been my philosophy my whole life. Even if I want to compete or not, I always like to be at least 16 weeks away from being able to, should I want to, meaning just conditioning and things like that. So that was fun. So that was 2015. At 41, I competed a few times at the professional level at this point. What I wanted you guys to take away from this is that it's not about the anabolics. It's about having that foundation of lifestyle. There was no way that I could have just been able to bounce back that fast and achieve this if I didn't have the foundational lifestyle in place. No gear is gonna jump that. If you try that trick, you'll be in it for a good time, but definitely not a long time. And my thing is about I want to be able to do this and get up there when I'm 70, and I plan on doing it. So that is it, guys. Man, I hope you guys got some nuggets out of this just from my experience. But at the end of the day, always remember, it's about your lifestyle, it's about your foundation, it's about executing and getting skill sets in the 4 pillars: physical frame, organ health, hormone optimization, and healthy lifestyle habits. If you're gaining skill sets in those 4 areas, it's a foregone conclusion that you're going to be able to achieve anything that you want in regards to your health, fitness, performance, and personal goals. All right, guys, if you haven't done so already, please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.